Today is specially known as Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Jayanti, the advent of a great devotee of God who lived in the bliss and the love of God and propagated the love of God for the sake of the joy and the bliss of God. The day of love of God may be said to be Gauranga Mahaprabhu Jayanti. We know what is love, but our concept of love is contaminated by a trade relation that we establish between the lover and the beloved. Have you ever thought why anything is loved at all? The most initial abrupt answer to this question would be that the object is attractive. That which attracts evokes the sentiment of love for that particular object. But why does that object attract? One of the answers may be that it is beautiful. But what do we mean by beauty? Here is something which everyone seems to know, but no one can understand. Because human understanding, which is intellectuality, operates on the basis of calculation, a kind of mathematical judgment of things, and measures geometrically the pros and cons of the relationship of what appears to be beautiful. But beauty is a subject of art. It is not a mathematical equation. There are two things in the world which attracts immensely: the beautiful and the sublime. Nothing else can attract. Full moon is beautiful. A blossomed lotus or rose is beautiful. Our mind goes to it and we look at it again and again. Even the face of a newborn baby is beautiful. Whether it is the baby of a king or of a beggar, it makes no difference. They are attractive. On seeing a little child, you cannot know whether it is a king's child or a beggar's child. One becomes a king and another a beggar later on due to social and other types of circumstance. Apart from that which is called beautiful, there is another thing called sublime, which attracts by grandeur, majesty, power, force, magnificence, like the elephant. In the same way, as you would not like to turn your eyes away from a beautiful full moon in a blue sky, you would also like to go on looking at an elephant. If you have actually seen what happens to you when you see it. There is a total difference between the manner in which a beautiful thing attracts and a sublime thing attracts. The elephant and the ocean also attract us due to their terrible vastness and majesty and power. Before the majesty and the power of the elephant and the vast ocean, we look very small. Our importance is brought down to a very low level, and the ego, which is usually prominent in a human being, diminishes almost to the point of abolition, and you admire and enjoy a thing only when the ego ceases to operate. This is how the sublime attracts. But beauty is a different thing. You can admire an elephant, but you cannot love it. You can be overjoyed by the majesty of the vast, turbulent ocean, but you cannot embrace it, hug it, or love it. God is an object of love for a devotee. God is not merely an object of admiration. In Bhakti Shastra, two types of devotion are described. One is known as Aishwarya Pradhana Bhakti, another is known as Madhurya Pradhana Bhakti. Acharyas like Madhva and Ramanuja glorify God through His magnificence, His majesty, His potent capacity, His omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence. But there are other acharyas like Vallabha, to some extent Nimbarka also, and what to speak of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Admire God for His being the repository of all affection and duty. Usually, religions describe God as a father in heaven, keeping Him far, far at a distance from the dust of the earth, at a frightening distance almost, unapproachable greatness is attributed to God Almighty. But you cannot love such a God. You cannot love from your heart a bulldozer or a crane which has great strength, though you know its utility. Your sense of admiration may go to it, but your heart will not go to it. What is this peculiar thing which makes one love God? It is that very indescribable element in the factor of love which defies human understanding. When love attracts, nothing else can be said about it. Because love is there where there is joy and happiness. The soul of the human being is basically an utter perfection and freedom. Where there is freedom and perfection, there an internal joy manifests itself automatically. Whoever has lived in this world a life of freedom and to some extent a perfect life would be able to know what satisfaction is. All said and done, nothing can move us unless it satisfies us. And only that can satisfy us, which can bestow upon us all things that we need. What is it that we need? Whoever has lived in this world, the life of a mother, of a parent, of a devotee, of a lover or a beloved, of a servant of a great master, will be able to appreciate what propels attraction. The structure, the pattern, the shape of the object is not what attracts. The meaning that is hidden behind its structure, the significance that is behind it is what attracts. A high valued currency attracts not because of the material out of it made, but the meaning that it has within itself. It embodies power. In a similar manner, love is the movement of the soul in the direction of that which can fill it with joy. So many things in the world are there which also can satisfy us and fill us with some kind of joy, but they are temporary in their effect. Every object that is dear and near is also fraught with fear at the same time. That thing which you love most as an object which is very valuable can also perpetually keep you in anxiety due to the possibility of bereavement and the loss of that object, which can take place at any time due to the very nature of life itself. But God's joy, the Ananda that the Absolute Being is, not of that nature. What is God made of? What is the substance? Everything is made of something. What is God made of? Inscrutable is this great question before us. God is made up of that capacity to inundate you and drown you in the uttermost conceivable joy, almost of self-annihilation. Even in ordinary mortal affection, loves that are directed to perishable objects, even in such intensity of love, there is a temporary abolition of self-consciousness. The more you love a thing, the less you feel your existence at that moment. So that when you are in utter possession of the most beloved of things, you do not exist at that moment. There is an abolition of self-consciousness. And at that time, what is your experience? There is no one to experience it because you have ceased to operate as a personality at that time. If your personality retains itself to some extent at the moment of the enjoyment of the object of love, to that extent your joy is diminished. Only the object of love should be there and you should not be there. Only then it is perfect enjoyment. Even in such simple illustrations of a mother's love for a little child, that love makes the mother feel her own non-importance and the utter importance of the child. She pours herself entirely upon the child. When you pour yourself on the object of love, you are no more there because it is very clear that you have already poured yourself upon that object. You cannot be existing separately from that. As a molten metal can be cast into a crucible and it takes the shape of that crucible, the one who loves is cast into the mold of the object of love and experiences only that pattern of the mold, and oneself does not anymore exist at that time. That condition is called ecstasy. Ecstasy is the condition of loss of self-consciousness. On account of the feeling that something more than oneself has been obtained. In all forms of love and affection, the object of love is considered superior to oneself. Otherwise there cannot be attraction. If you are also equally important, the object of love will also be 50% only attractive. Utter attraction. 100% engagement in the object of affection is possible only when you are 100% annihilated and you are no more there. If you are no more there, who experiences the joy? The soul which is not you, but more than you, rises to action at that time. It is the soul that operates when you behold an object of art. It is reason that operates when you see a work of mathematical perfection. The soul's perfection or God's perfection is not the perfection of an equation. It is an inundation of indescribability. God is sometimes called the Cupid of Cupid, Sakshat Manmatha Manmatha. Manmatha is one who churns the mind of a person. And he himself gets churned by another thing which excels his beauty. The most beautiful objects of affection are supposed to be in the kingdom of Indra. One day he projected the retinue of his beauties before the great sages Narayana and Nara near Badrinath. Yabhir grihitaha purushaha sonmada eva darshyate, says the Valmiki Ramayana. Such are those presentations. By the very touch of it, one becomes crazy and mad. Such things Indra projected in a large mass of gaiety and attraction. Narayana and Nara were in intense tapas and meditation. And by a stroke of his thigh, Narayana produced a beauty which made all these retinues of beauty of Indra look like crows, like darkened nothings, who hung their head in shame and withdrew themselves. And Narayana told Indra, take this if you want. He was shuddering with fear. He never imagined that there can be such a thing which the human mind cannot conceive. That is the power that God only can manifest. Unfortunately for us, human beings, men or women, we cannot imagine that God is a beautiful presentation before us. We mostly think God is like a judge, like a disciplinarian, a hard taskmaster, a parent who admonishes and perhaps even threatens with dire consequences if anyone goes against their laws. But rarely can we imagine that He is beauty. The human intellect is so conditioned by the limitations of space, time and objectivity that intellect cannot appreciate beauty. It cannot see it at all. It only sees machines and calculations and arrangements of a geometrical nature, not knowing that perfection is not either mathematical, algebraical, arithmetical, or anything of the kind. In order to appreciate the possibility of God Almighty being the object of love, one has to tear oneself completely to pieces and shreds in its egoistic encasement. The name of God cannot be taken by an egoistic individual. This is what Gauranga Mahaprabhu said in that famous oft-quoted verse. Which you all know perhaps. One who is more patient than a tree, humbler than a blade of grass, one who gives respect to all but expects respect from nobody. Such a person is fit to take the name of God. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. That which stands between the devotee and God has to be removed. Only then can that ocean of love come and bathe the devotee. The ocean can enter the river, provided there is no bund or a dam constructed between the ocean and the river which is seeking to enter into the ocean. Ahankara, egoism, self-consciousness, pride, self-importance. This is what divides man from God. Because before God there cannot be two selves. God is all self, and therefore yourself cannot stand before it. If you assert yourself, you isolate yourself from that all self, and that ocean of joy cannot enter you. You have created a barrier between yourself and that being. Our loves generally go for those things which will satisfy our sense organs. We do not know any other joy. Soft touches, tasty dishes, that which is very fragrant in its order, which is colorful, symmetrical, methodically arranged, systematic before the eyes, and melodious to the ears. These are the things that attract the mind. But these are isolated objects, one disconnected from the other. The whole of the beauty cannot be enjoyed by any sense organ. Because if you see the beauty with your eyes, you cannot enjoy the melody of it or the taste of it, which is like honey, or the magical touch of it. There is a maddening odor of fragrance, an ecstasy of touch, an indescribable taste more than honey for that particular sense, and a superabundance of colorful beauty. All these blend together in the perfection of God. That is why it is said that God can be known only in intuition and not through sensory perception. Every sense organ can see one particular object. All things cannot be seen by any particular sense. But intuition grasps at one stroke the totality of the object. And there is no such thing as a total object before the sense organs. Those who see only with the eyes and hear through the ears, etc., cannot understand what is a total object. We are confronting every day partial objects. Something is given, something else cannot be given by that object. Gold can satisfy you in one way, but you cannot eat gold. And what you can eat cannot equal gold in its value, etc., are the limitations of the objects of sensory attraction. But there is something which can melt together all the requirements of the sense organs and pull the soul out of the body. In which condition alone you start feeling a rapture of ecstasy. I do not know how many of us had the occasion to be in a state of spiritual rapture. We might have had experience of intense concentration, a kind of absorption in meditation. But I do not know how many have felt rapture, a shudder, a trembling, a feeling of rupture of the personality, as if everything in you has gone and something else has come. These are some of the hidden significances behind the teachings and even the very life of the great Mahabhakta Gauranga Mahaprabhu. We only hear what he did, but we cannot know what he felt. You can see sugar, but you cannot know the sweetness of it unless you put it in your own mouth. Nobody can love God unless one believes that God is everything. If there is a suspicious attitude towards God, a possibility of getting something and a possibility of not getting something else also, then God will recede from us as a horizon. He may be appearing to be near us, but he will move further and further away on account of the doubts persisting in our mind that it is not all things. The concept of all, of everything, is super intellectual and super rational in its comprehension. For the intellect, there is no such thing as all. The allness that the intellect can conceive is only a multitude of finite objects. 100 million things it can bring together and make a heap of them, and they may look like a all. But millions of finite objects heaped together do not make the all. Because many finites do not make an infinite. All the resources of the world put together do not give you infinite satisfaction. Because of the fact that it is impossible for the human mind to conceive what love is or joy is, the Upanishad gives us a series of degrees of perfection and happiness, in case you will be able to appreciate the meaning behind that calculus we have in the Taittiriya Upanishad or the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Can you imagine what is happiness? Who is a happy person? Have you seen anywhere a happy person? You cannot see a totally happy person anywhere. You can imagine in the mind at least. If such a thing could be possible, I can say I am most happy. A possibility only. It is not a reality. What are the things that can make you utterly happy? The whole world should be mine. I must be the king, the emperor of the whole earth. Nobody should vie with me or contend with me. Alright, this will give you required satisfaction. No, I must not die also. Suppose I am a king of the whole earth, but tomorrow death is going to overtake me. This kingship is not of any utility to me. So, an inconceivably long life should be there together with kingdom of the earth. Even that is not sufficient. Suppose that person has a contagious disease, an infection which is incurable, together with this grant of a long life and the possession of the whole earth, that kind of life would be worth nothing. So, you have to ask for a third thing. One has to be free from any kind of disease. Not only that, you should not be an old man, you must be youthful and glamorous. You don't wish to rule the world as a king who is 100 years old. No, I must be youthful, jubilant, beautiful, vigorous, healthy, long living. Kingdom, the whole earth is mine. But he should not be an idiot. He must be a highly educated person also. So all the qualifications of knowledge also should be there. Can you imagine such a person anywhere in the world? There is no such person. But the Upanishad says, at least imagine it. Suppose such a person exists with all these impossible qualities, the joy of that person can be considered as one unit of measure of joy. Multiply this imagined wonderful joy of the emperor by 100. That is the joy of the Gandharvas in the higher heaven. 100 times the joy of the Gandharvas is the joy of the celestials in heaven. 100 times the joy of the celestials is the joy of Indra, the ruler of the gods. 100 times the joy of Indra is the joy of Brihaspati, the preceptor of the gods. 100 times the joy of the Brihaspati is the joy of Prajapati, the creator himself, the Virat. 100 times that is the joy of Hiranyagarbha. 100 times the joy of Hiranyagarbha is of Ishvara. Infinitely larger, incapable of calculation is the joy of the absolute Brahman. So what is the joy of people like us? Seated here, small individuals. We are also happy in some way, isn't it? We will look like fools and we cannot show our face to anybody in the world. If such mighty, great grandeurs exist, and we look like puny nothings, scratching our skin and nerves for a so-called imaginary satisfaction of contact of the sense organs with imagined objects. Who can love God? Only one who can feel the possibility of such a perfection as has been feebly described in the Upanishads. The Brahma Jnana, Brahman bliss, the absolute bliss. Million times more than all the greatest joys conceivable in this world. Can you contain the feeling of such a kind of bliss? If that imagination at least can be contained in our mind, we may be transformed in one moment into super personalities and not remain as ordinary human beings. Great Acharyas have proclaimed that you cannot love God unless you know what God is. And these few words that I have spoken before you are only an attempt to describe what God could be, though words cannot describe what He is. And even the thought of it will raise us to a kind of love and spontaneous affection which will nullify in a moment all the joys of the world as insipid, tasteless. Brahmaloka Trinekaro Vairagyasya Avadhirmataha. Acharya Shankara says somewhere, if the bliss of Brahmaloka can look like a straw which has no essence, you have attained to supreme Vairagya. But who can imagine the bliss of Brahmaloka, where everything is everywhere? Such kind of love was taught by Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Such was the love which the gopis felt in the Vrindavan, and such was the love of many of the saints and sages, the Alvars, Myanmars, and various other devotees whose biographies we read in Bhakta Charita, Bhaktamala, and such textbooks. Love rules the world. It is not the intellect that rules the world, because love alone can appreciate. And wherever there is appreciation, there is success of every kind. This is the rule of the beauty of God, the joy of God, which we cannot entertain in our minds if we persist in thinking that God is only a judge sitting in a court in high heaven, ready to punish the wrongdoer. God does not punish anybody. Our egoism punishes us. The adamant flint-like ahankara in us, the ego, that deals a blow over us, and it looks like a punishment come from God. Thus it is. Before us a brief message of the duty of devotees. Anandadhyeva khal vimani bhutani jayanti. This world is created by the bliss of God. not by the terror of God. Anandena jatani jivanti. The world is sustained by the bliss that is behind it. Anandam abhishantiti. Finally, the whole world will enter into the bliss of God. Ko shevanyat, kah pranyat, yadyesha akasha anando rasyat. Even space itself is a bliss. Suppose there is no space, you see how you feel in yourself. You get suffocated and all the joy of life vanishes in 1 second. Breathing is a joy. Spatial expanse is a joy. Because the bliss of God is hiddenly manifest in all these manifestations, even in our own selves. The bliss that is within us is calling the bliss that is without us. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. For the sake of the bliss of the self, every other things, every other object in the world looks attractive and lovable. And this love that is hidden in our own self is not in one person only. It is present in every person. Even in an ant that crawls, even in a creature that moves, that self-love manifests itself, it wriggles to maintain itself. That total self-love of all creation is a little modicum of the manifestation of the infinite love of God. Such is what we are aspiring for. And the life of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, the life of great devotees like the Gopis of Vrindavan are illustrations before us. The love of Saint Surdas, Kabir Das, Tulsidas, read their lives. These are inspirations before us. And today is one of the occasions, being Gauranga Mahaprabhu Jayanti, when we can recall to our souls, not merely to our minds, the joy that is everywhere. And it is well said that creation is the overflowing of the superabundance of the bliss of God. So may we try to live in that bliss and be blessed. Hari Om Tat Sat.